Okay, so some information that may help you for your assignment is looking at monohybrid and dihybrid crosses. So we actually did this in class before the holidays, but I thought I would put this on there just to remind you guys. So when we look at a monohybrid cross, usually we look at basically what the parents are passing on to their offspring. So we just look at the mother and the father and we look at one particular trait. So you might want to look at the eye colour or just the hair colour, for example, to see what can be passed down. So we're going to put an example. I'll put a bit of information there at the top. But an example I'm going to give you is with pea plants. So we're going to look at purple pea plant and a white pea plant and have a look at what is passed on from the parents to the offspring. So I'm going to try and draw you a Punnett square right now. And yes, my writing is very big. I don't quite know why that is. First time I'm using this. So well, let's have a look at a Punnett square for a monohybrid cross. Okay, so if we looked at the genotype and phenotype before, we had a purple pea plant whose characteristics were capital A dominant, and a white pea plant who had lowercase a, and was recessive. So if we draw the Punnett square here on the screen, okay, so we always are looking at with a monohybrid one characteristic. So let's have a look at the colour. So let's put one up here, the dominant. So we'll put capital A, and then we'll put the recessive down the side. So the dominant we know is going to be the purple and the recessive is the white. So if we want to look at the two characteristics passed down, what they're going to be, we just match them up, so the top and the bottom. And this is what is going to end up happening because all offspring are going to end up heterozygous. Okay, but what's happened here, this is the F1 generation. Okay, what's happened here is the dominant has masked the recessive gene. Okay, so all the offspring from that particular Punnett square there, they're going to be heterozygous, but they're showing the dominant trait because dominant is always going to override the recessive. But in saying that, although they're all showing the dominant purple flower, because they have the recessive trait, they're carriers, okay, but they're not actually showing it, so they could therefore pass that particular allele for the white colour on to their offspring in the future. So now I'm going to have a quick look at the F2 generation. So if we're going to look at the babies now of the previous lot, let's see what they ended up. So they end up being heterozygous. So both the parents are going to have this particular combination here. So if we draw our Punnett square in the centre, and this is going to be the F2 generation, so the next one coming along, we can have a look at the possibilities here. So we look at the ratio that we could get. So in this box, we're going to get the two capital A's. In this one here, we're going to look at the capital A and the lowercase on the side. Same with the top one here, we've got a capital A on the side, a lowercase at the top. But if we look at this last box, then we're going to end up with a white flower there. So the ratio for this particular F2 generation is going to be 3 to 1. Okay, so what does that mean? There will be 3 purple flowers, as you can see, and there will be 1 white homozygous recessive. So that is a monohybrid cross. So the one you need to actually do for your assignment is called a dihybrid cross. So I'm going to show you that one now so you can have a look at that and go over it before that needs to be due in later on in the week. Okay, so in the dihybrid cross, we're basically looking at 2 different traits this time. And as I explained in class last term, usually geneticists will actually do that. A, it saves time, so they can put 2 things onto one specific Punnett square and draw, instead of drawing out lots and lots of little ones. But they can also have a look at, you know, which offspring inherit all dominant characteristics for two things or a combination. So I gave you the example of, some people having brown hair and blue eyes, which is a dominant and a recessive trait, or blonde hair and brown eyes, which is the same thing. So we're looking at that particular, offspring combinations to see what they'll end up with. So the example we're going to look at for our dihybrid cross, we're going to look at vegetables. So a specific vegetable, just a random one. We're going to look at white fruit colour being dominant over yellow fruit colour, and disc-shaped fruit dominant over the sphere shape. So they're our two alleles. We're looking at colour and shape. So if we look at the parental cross, for a dominant, we're going to look at two capital W's and two capital D's. If they're going to be recessive, they're going to be two lowercase w's and two lowercase d's. Okay, so have a quick look at those combinations and we'll see how to draw that up. This is going to be very similar to the one you need to do in your assignment. So you do need to do a dihybrid cross. Okay, so as you can see here, a dihybrid cross is the study of inheritance patterns for organisms differing in two traits. So as I said before, we're going to look at the colour and we're also going to look at the shape of the fruit. So let's have a look now at the possible combinations. So remember in class last term I said we need to look at all the different possibilities we can get out of the parents. So on the previous page I put up there what the parental cross would be if they were dominant or recessive, so we can match that together. So let's draw this up now. Okay, so the first one, I'm just going to write under there. We've got a W, capital and capital. We've got a capital and a lowercase. This is for one parent. A lowercase and a capital and two lowercases. That's one possible combination. Then down the side for the other parent, we have the same thing. So we have two capitals here. We have a capital and a lowercase. We have a lowercase and a capital and two lowercases. So we can actually draw this into our Punnett square so you can have a look at the different possibilities that these kids could have. So I'm just going to do this as I'm talking. A bit messy, but anyway, you're used to that. So we've got this one, two capitals of each, correct? The next one, two capital W's, but we're going to have a capital and a lowercase. So it doesn't really matter if you put the capital, the lowercase. I like to do the capital first. Just makes me feel like I can read it easier. But if you could keep the two similar letters together, that would be fantastic. So as you can see, I'm just going from this column, okay, matching it with this column. So we're going to do the same thing on this side now. So we're going to start with the W here and pair it up with this one here. So we have capital, 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 lowercase. Capital, capital, and then two lowercase d's. Okay, so all we have to do is follow it along. We have a capital, a lower, a capital, and a lower. So just follow it along. The reason I'm doing this is if you don't get it the first time, or if we're in class and we don't have time, then you can come home and you can actually just jump on to Edmodo and go over this as many times as you like. Generally we'll have something like this in the exam. I don't know if they'll keep it that way. Okay, so you can see what I'm doing here. So the last column we're looking at now, we have capital, 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 lowercase. Same thing here. We'll have a capital, a lowercase, but two lowercase d's. Okay, two lowercase w's, a capital and a lower, and then all lowercase s. That guy is going to be all recessive. So now we've worked out the dihybrid cross. So that's what I can change that into, dihybrid. We need to work out the ratios like we did in the last section. So now I will quickly go over the ratios for you guys and you can see exactly what's happening. So I'll just change the page. Okay, so this one's actually going to have quite a big, this is your genotypic ratio. So 1 out of the 16 will be homozygous for their shape and the colour. So they're going to be 2 capital W's, 2 lowercase d's, if we look at them all along there. Whoops. They're going to be homozygous. It's going to be capital, 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 capital. Okay, so 2 out of 16 will be homozygous dominant. So you can read through the rest of those. So all you need to do is look back at the Punnett square, and I'll actually try and type this all up or handwrite it up and photocopy it for you so you can look at the Punnett square at the same time you're looking at these genetic characteristics here. So if you're going to look at the genotypic ratio, and we're going to write it down the bottom, down here, if I can figure out how to do this, it'll be 1 to 2 to 2 to 1 to 4 to 2 to 1 to 2 to 1. So how did I figure that out? All I did was look down on the left-hand side of those ratios or those numbers there. So 1, 2, 2, 1, 4, 2, 1, 2, 1. Down the left-hand side, straight down, and that's going to give me the genotypic ratio. So I might actually, genotypic ratio. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is look at the phenotypic ratio, and that one's not as long, and then we are done. So looking at the phenotypic ratio here, so what characteristics are they showing? We've got 9 out of the 16 are going to have white, disc-shaped fruit. 3 out of the 16, and all I did was look back at the Punnett square, and you can actually just count them up, how many is going to have each. White sphere shaped. Okay, and then going on to the next page, 3 out of 16 are going to have yellow, disc shaped fruit, and then 1 out of 16 is going to have yellow, sorry about that, sphere shaped. If I could figure out how to rub it out, I know there is actually a way I would actually do it, but I don't know that yet. Okay, so if we're looking at the phenotypic ratio, it's going to be 9 to 3 to 3 to 1. Alright, and that concludes now the lesson on monohybrid and dihybrid crosses. I will go over this in class with you the first week back, and you can just jump on to Edmodo and look at this anytime you like for revision. Okay, bye.